So I want to briefly talk about the origins of this machine. It started its life around 2005 as a Tesco icon, like IQON, a brand that's now no longer. Basically, it was a bundle PC, which looked pretty cool at the time. You know, it had like a slide-in front panel with SD slots and CD drive and everything. You know, it's had a few iterations since then, and I've upgraded it and changed pretty much all the parts in it. So the next phase of this machine, interestingly, none of the original machine will remain after this third phase of upgrades. So it's evocative of the ship of Theseus, where none of the original PC still remains. So is it the same PC still? I guess it's up for debate, right? But my memory and nostalgia is there. So anyway, the idea is to basically restore this as a Windows XP machine purely for gaming. So I've got a bunch of goodies from Vinted, eBay, all secondhand stuff I found online. I just basically went mad with the upgrades for this. So I guess this is kind of the first unboxing I've ever done. So I'm going to start with the upgrades. So this will be the CPU. It's like drugs, isn't it? Here we go. AMD Athlon 64x2. Beautiful. Next one up is the SSD. So I've got this off of Vinted. The first time I've ever used Vinted. Basically new. So second hand but new. 120 gigabytes is perfect for an XP installation. And some basic bits. I've got it's a DVI to DVI cable, because I currently have an adapter to VGA which goes to analog. So this keeps everything digital. So by doing that, I'll keep all the signals digital. Thermal paste to reapply the new CPU fan. Pretty much that's it. And last but not least, the big puppy. Actually, I had a good deal on this from Vinted. The seller was super quick postage. It was a 600 watt EVGA to replace this nasty 400 watt CIT thing. So there we go. Nice 600 watt. Very modern. A little bit of dust on it. I don't mind that though. Oh, so this is the one that doesn't have the components. So it's all hardwired. So I'm stuck with these dangly bits really. It's all about cable management on this one. But that's the old school way. So it fits it for a period rig. Find it. Go find it. What? What? What is it? So obviously I don't want to just do a blind upgrade and just like not quantify any performance gain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a benchmarking tool on the current rig. So I'm going to boot into Vista and just run a benchmark so I can at least take some figures and then use that same software when it's complete. It's tempting to just kind of change the CPU, change the RAM and test it that way on the current system, but I'm just going to like have some patience and wait till the whole thing's complete and then benchmark it again in XP. So on the current machine, we're benching 431.3. So this is quite a comprehensive test. It tests all the different subcomponents of the system, but then gives me an overall score. So how I quantify this, I'm not sure yet, but I'll try and export these results so I can use later on. So I think the most meaningful benchmark on this rig will be the CPU. So that's currently clocking in at 456.5. So hopefully the dual core will really change that figure. Hopefully double it. Okay, so first task is basically a quick clean. Nothing super deep. Just have it a once over, get the bulk of the crud off, because I know there's some big chunks of build up in there. Got a nice bit of build up. The spin-off air vortex from the CPU is obviously throwing that dust straight onto the RAM stick. So I don't know whether I want to actually upgrade this fan so it doesn't do that, because the way it's mounted it's blowing straight into that RAM stick. So yeah, I want to have a different type of fan on this, especially now that it's going to be upgraded to a dual core. So there's a lovely bit of fan crud on there, as you can see. Beautiful bit of fan crud. We've even got this like special dustpan and brush mini set. Oh, it's crusty. Honestly, it's just crusty. It is actually caked on in here, which is a shame. All in all, the board looks in pretty decent shape. This is the biggest gripe of mine at the minute. I was expecting there to be more thermal paste on this chip, but it seems either it's gone on very thin or a lot has just disintegrated over time. There she is, the original single core, single thread AMD Athlon. So this is a Venice chip. So this is some of the crud that came out. A very brief once over. That fan is caked. It needs a good clean off cam. And that is the RAM stick that the fan was just chucking everything against. So these are 2 elixirs and 2 transcends. However, I'm still waiting for 4 sticks of 1GB Kingston to come. They're coming from Italy. So I'm just going to give him a bit of a clean manually, and I'll probably just wash this in the sink. Just doesn't want to come out. There she goes. Basically just match that corner arrow there to that corner there, but I like to double check, and I check the space location on the back. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Should just drop straight in. So I completely forgot how delicate these things are. You've got to be so careful with the pins. So I've accidentally bent a couple of pins and it wouldn't go in, so I've pried them back. Hopefully it fits. Yeah, it's going in perfectly. Stupidly, I put some pressure on it, but these old chips, these old computers, you've got to be so careful with. Just gonna put a grease remover on. Try it with my shirt. My shirt's clean, so. Heated debate about this, but the new way is meant to be just to put a blob on and then chuck the heatsink on. But to be honest with you, I've always done it with a blob on a spread. So that's probably more than enough. Buttered toast, as they call it. Job done. Heatsinks are old school, aren't they? They're just big block. These socket 939s, and around that era, they've just got a big clamp basically, and these clamps clamp onto the plastic bracket. So it can get a bit messy, can't it? But I can just spy you, the clamp's actually broken on one side. Yeah, there's actually, the plastic is actually broken on one side. It's probably putting slight pressure on the motherboard. You can just about see the plastic snapped off, so it's raised slightly. So really I need to get a fresh bracket brace for this, but I'm gonna just add it to the list of upgrades. But this is like phase 2 so there'll be future upgrades again. So what I'm gonna do now quickly is I'm just gonna reassemble the power supply and just boot into the BIOS just to make sure that this CPU is okay. So power on. Fan spinning nicely. Making all the right noises. Will I get something? Ooh, dual core. So there we are. The BIOS picks it up. AMD Athlon, 64x2 dual core, 4200 plus. Okay, so I'm a bit happier. I booted into MX Linux, which I can just boot off of USB. So it's really good on old hardware, but I just checked the CPUs and it's registering 2 CPUs on that chip. Cores per socket 2, threads per core 1. So I'm just going to leave it run for a couple of hours just to make sure that the temps stay okay and nothing crashes, so we know it's stable. So this is kind of the fun of an old build. I say fun, it's pretty much torture, but this is what it was like in the old days, where you'd have a plan, you simply just want to swap a CPU and the whole thing would just come crashing down. So I bent the pin on the new CPU. I don't know how. I was super careful with it. It was the pin right on the edge, and it's got like 3 pins slightly got bent in, but it's recoverable. I'm hoping it's fine. But when I was installing it, then that's when I noticed the motherboard bracket to mount the cooler had cracked. So when you put both clamps on, because it's snapped, one of the clamps is like kind of high, so it's not fully flush on the CPU. Anyway, MacGyvered for now, it'll work. Plan is just to rush straight through and get XP up and running. So the disk is in. The newer drive is cooked, won't work. But the oldest 20-year-old drive took a little bit of persuasion, but it's doing its thing. Oh dear. So for now I'm basically just gonna pop in the Kingston card here, just leave it loose, just so I can get XP and installing onto this. But it's booting off the disk, which is lovely. So there was a lot of hoo-ha with AHCPI, whatever it's called. It's like power management, but you basically press F7 to disable it when you boot, and it gets straight into the installer. So I'm going to install that to the Kingston right now. Honestly, how happy am I to see this screen? Oh my god, it's just been an absolute nightmare getting this rig to boot anything since I changed that CPU. But here she is. I've left this run for the last hour or so just to check stability, but look at those resources, it's just proper low. So just left the rig kind of in a mess, but it's taken absolutely forever to get XP installed. It was just an absolute nightmare. So long story short, basically what I needed to do was change the jumper on the motherboard to fully clear CMOS, because even though it was recognizing the dual core upgrade, there was some sort of table structure in there that basically was linked to the old CPU, I believe. So it all looked fine, but under the hood, it was a mess. So yeah, basically XP failed to install like 3-4 times, then had blue screens of death and everything. So what I had to do is boot into Linux off of a USB and kind of repartition the drive and everything. So I've got 2 main partitions now, one for XP and one for Linux, and then the rest is free storage. But yeah, she's finally up and running and stable. So I'm just doing some CPU and GPU stress testing to make sure everything's behaving. And it just occurred to me what the name of this rig should be. If you listen carefully, you can hear that high-pitched whine and hissing. Kind of sounds like a locust, right? What's actually happening here is this GPU is kind of known for this. And what's happening is when the voltage flows through the capacitors on this graphics card, it creates a really high pitch sound. However, as you can hear, the harder the card works, the higher pitch the sound goes. So basically you can it sounds as if there's a speaker in the system, but that is just the voltage flowing through the card. So the more rendering it's doing and the harder it's pushing, the more electricity it draws, the more it makes a sound. So it's really interesting. You can kind of hear it matching to what it's rendering on screen. So yeah, I'm officially nicknaming this rig the Locust. So we've got the next batch of eBay purchases, which is the next step of the upgrade. So basically going to start with the RAM. And so we've got an aftermarket cooler from eBay that will replace what I currently have. However, I still need a back plate for this, but I'm just gonna show it off for now. We won't be installing this yet, but this is what's gonna fix our fan issue. So first job I have, I'm just gonna swap out these RAM sticks, just to double check that Windows and Linux picks up the new hardware and is fine with the Kingston. There's no issues with it. I'll run a quick benchmark just to make sure everything is a-okay, because the last thing I want to do is just chuck in all the upgrades and then have an issue and then not know where to start debugging. So this is the way I like to work, is just do one little upgrade at a time.
Nice and uniform. I like that.
Okay, yeah, it's booting up just fine. So it's got 4 gig of RAM now, so they're all nice and matched. It's showing up as DDR3, but I think that's just the BIOS playing it safe, downclocking them. So I've got a bit of wiggle room there to play with the RAM speed. But for now, I'm just going to keep it all stock, CPU stock, RAM stock, boot up, just run another benchmark and see if it makes any difference really. So we've actually got a performance improvement, albeit around 1,000 marks better. However, something I've actually realized is when I was running these benchmark tests, the noise that this usually makes, and I'm very accustomed to how this card sounds. This sounds a lot smoother, which is very interesting. So this card is actually performing a lot cleaner and smoother with this new RAM in. So I did a little bit of research, and it seems that it basically improves stability. So there's less error reads, and there's more stability with the electric thrown through the system. So this makes me really happy. So any improvement I can quantify, it's justified. All these years, my talent's clearly been wasted. So next step of this build, I've basically got to tear it completely down to nothing because I've been waiting on this clamp from Germany. So this is a back brace for the CPU cooler, and this will actually fix the issue I have with it being snapped. So I actually don't have to fix that snapped bracket. There's 2 threads on the board that I can literally clamp this to, that this cooler basically clamps straight to the back plate. However, I am going to try and fix the broken bracket anyway, just for extra support. But yeah, you can't really find these anymore. It's really hard to come by, and so the screws for it as well. So I've got my little bit of loot now for the teardown. So here you can clearly see the broken clamp. So it's actually kind of like settled into a raised position because it's probably been snapped for so long. The CPU cooler has pretty much not been cooling half the CPU. If you can imagine, that's sat proud. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and plastic weld a pin into it just so it still holds square, because that is not good, is it? So what I've got is I've kind of got a paper clip and I've fashioned it into a V basically, so the join will go in between the V, so it has some sort of like retention. It's not just a straight weld. So I'll basically superheat that and press it in. It's now probably stronger than it ever was. It's just got that metal pin in there now. But it's no wonder this snapped, because this is very, very thin, very flimsy. What I'm going to do now is basically just add an extra layer of plastic just to reinforce it slightly. What was happening before is essentially these pins were just in the motherboard and the old clamp was too tight. I think it was the wrong fit, to be honest with you, and basically it's just pulled so hard that it's just snapped right off here. So the solution is with this new backplate, and I'm very happy this fits so snugly, is essentially once this back plate pops in with this new clamp, it's the type of clamp that only uses two teeth, and it's the main teeth that are on the posts. So a bolt goes through here and attaches into the back plate, so the brace transfers all the pressure, gets transferred straight through the bolt, through the back plate, and gets dispersed. So this pin, even though it gives it a bit of tensile strength, it's not really needed because all the pressure will be through here. This just provides outward support. So any flex in the cooler, it'll travel and it'll slightly disperse through these outriggers, which isn't really needed. You could potentially get away with even just two posts like that, but obviously if you had the cooler on and it flexed, then you risk it snapping. So this way any rocking will transfer through here, these pins through the motherboard, so it'll clamp really well. So I'm really happy with this repair. It doesn't look, the nicest, bit ugly, but they always are, and who cares, I'm not going to be looking at it, but it's very rigid. I'm really happy with that. So yeah, just to picture it once more, that clamps onto the motherboard, that's at the back of the motherboard. Pins go through here, so all the pressure gets transferred through the back plate and it clamps this on. Right, so before I do anything, I'm going to quickly note what these bolts are. They're UNC bolts, screws, which the threads are slightly thicker on them, and they're in between sizes because they're imperial, not like the metric screws. So if you get like M3 screws or M4 screws, these are in between them. So these are like American standards, where here in the UK you get all the M screws in the shops. It won't fit this. So I've had an absolute nightmare trying to get this, the right hardware for this. So these, for this specific setup, this is 1 inch, these ones. So it's 6 to 32, 1 inch, UNC. So these are grooved slightly. So this little post fits in the groove, and then it gets narrower. So basically it clamps in really snugly. So it's a nice design because it holds flush to the motherboard. So what I'll do is basically hand tighten it just with the pressure of my thumb and index, just so it's snug. You don't want to over tighten these, and just give it an extra little twist just to add that last bit of pressure in, just to hold it in. That's perfect. So not too tight, but not loose. What I'll do, I'll put a little bit of tape over these as well. So this is polyamide tape. Basically it withstands electricity and heat exceptionally well. So you'd see this used on like battery packs and electronics. So I'm just being extra precautious. I probably don't need to add this, but just in case anything does happen in the future, I just want to cap this. So last time I know I was too liberal with the paste, but I'm just gonna do the same as before, just a little less. Okay, so now's my chance to basically disconnect the crappy broken fan and the power supply. So the new one's going in. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to disconnect this fan for now altogether and just stick with an exhaust fan, just for a temporary measure. Okay, Johnny number 5's had a full disassemble. Just the chassis and the floppy drives left, but only upwards we go from here. So I'm not going to make you guys sit through the whole installation. We're going to use some magic here. So I'm super happy with this. The temps are solid 25 degrees, which they fluctuated up past 35, 37 before, but they are basically stone-walled at 25. So it tells me it's seated nicely, and obviously that big fat block is more than enough to keep it cool. So when I'm in a full-on balls deep gaming session, we know that this is gonna get the cooling it needs. Beautiful. Some more PC building shenanigans. Essentially, I found out that this power supply just isn't going to work for this rig. So it's just too modern. And with modern power supplies, they have a really fast power OK signal. And the motherboard I have is basically built for older style ATX power supply specs where they have a slower power OK signal. So essentially, sometimes it boots, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have to power cycle it 2-3 times. Sometimes it comes on straight away. It's one of them things that doesn't really damage anything. It's just really annoying. So I'll show a quick little chart of the response times. But essentially, what I need to do is swap it for an older power supply. So I've looked on eBay. And I found a Seasonic one that I've ordered. So it's a period correct power supply that I'm just going to install when it comes. So I'm going to kind of inch forward as it is for the minute, cycling it on and off for it to boot. But yeah, I'm just going to deal with the headache for now until this other one arrives. Admittedly, a little bit annoying because I spent a good few hours trying to plan the best cable management for this. It's not the cleanest cable management in the world, but I did spend a good while trying to organize it and fit everything to my needs. Anywho, it's good practice. A little side effect from wiring this all back up is that I've managed to get the drive that I thought was dead back to life. And it's actually really healthy. I don't know why it took a while to come back to life. You can tell it's healthy because when you put the DVD in, it pretty much shakes the whole tower. It's that strong. So it's come back to life really well. So there's no issues with that. It sounds really healthy, and it still feels powerful. So I'm happy with that. So for now, I've just put the Molex fan, 120mm fan from the back onto the front, just as a stepping stone, so I'll get some nice airflow. So I've got a chassis fan that I've bought that'll plug into the motherboard. I do have a splitter for it, but I need 2 of these to use the splitter. So for now, I'm just going to have the motherboard chassis fan plugged into the back and the Molex on the front. So that'll give me the airflow. So I'm nearly there. I'm pretty much getting to the stage that this will be operational. So I've got a couple more goodies in store. Right, all good. Let's give her a whirl. Lovely, beautiful. So this machine has never had that chassis fan plugged in. I've always had like 5 Molex fans. So this is the first time that head has ever been used. But it seems to be working fine. So now that I've got an intake and exhaust fan, ideally I'd like to design some sort of filter to fit this retroactively. What I might do is like plastic welder brace for this, and then fuse like a sort of mesh to it. But it should be easy enough. I could even just stick like a coffee filter in between that intake and where the fan is, because this will literally hoover in dust, especially in this studio. There's probably a lot of dust, and I do a bit of woodworking here and everything, so this is just going to get absolutely caked with dust. So I'll come up with something in future just as a sort of filter medium. There's probably tons of stuff you can buy online, so I'll have a little look on eBay. Brews are essential. in anything engineering. Well, in anything. This is the British way. Pretty much it's taken a month to get up until this point in the rig. And there's just been a bunch of unknowns, a bunch of stuff that I didn't see come in. But I've approached it the way I usually do. Just instead, I've been filming the entire process. So it is frustrating at times because it's like I'm waiting for a part to come, or I need to order a new part, or I need to research to fix something. And then there's a lot of editing and filming to go in between. So it's like filming this process is a bit more frustrating than it usually would be just to crack on with it. But I've had tons of fun doing it. So up until now, it's been pretty much maintenance. Yes, I've changed the CPU and RAM, but it's been pretty much maintenance, right? I've had to strip it down, clean it out, fix some bits. So this next batch of goodies that I've acquired is pretty much allowing this machine to take shape. So I'm super excited about this next phase. So I've had a few things come from eBay, and I visited my local computer shop today, and they had a sale on. So I spent a good while digging through boxes and having a good few lengthy chats, but I found a really nice item that personally I think is going to be the cherry on the cake for this build, because yeah, it's period correct as well. So I think, however, I am well overdue a good clean of the desk here, because it's an absolute bombshell. So the desk looks like an ICBM has hit it. So yeah, I need a quick tidy up of the desk, and then I'm going to crack on. What you think, Inspector? Is it a good job? Did I do a good job? Good? Cheese? Food? Treat? Alright. So this is the power supply. That looks good. Beautiful, what a beaut. Oh, I much prefer that over the EVGA as well. Nice. So apparently they've got Japanese capacitors in here, which makes it super reliable. Next up, proper treat that I'm really excited for this one. So, I'll let you guys guess what it might be. It's a Sound Blaster Order G2 card. So this will give me proper EAX up until EAX 4. So this will be an absolute treat for some of the games I'm going to play. What an absolute beauty. So next up, just some small bits I had from the store. So some SATA cables, black and red. My theme for this, it'll probably be black and red rig. I know the motherboard's blue, you can't really see it though. So black and red is the main thing. So a good few spare SATA cables, always good to have them about. And I found an actual black IDE cable. So So this is an Asus, so that will replace my ugly yellow thing. So that just looks a bit nicer, especially if this is going on, you know, YouTube and that. It just makes this rig look that much nicer. Look at that. Beautiful. And last but not least, the monitor. Look at that. So we've got 2 USBs on the side. It's actually got DVI input. So really happy about that. VGA just in case I need it. But you can route your USBs back through here. So this is like, this must have been a sort of enterprise, like office type, production type monitor, because it's got a glossy screen on it. So the Dells were usually used in office environments or creative industries. So it's just super well built. It's got proper heavy duty rubber pads on the bottom. This thing feels solid. Like, it feels like you could throw a brick at it and it just laugh. Just an absolute unit. So this is what I want to be gaming on. So what I'm going to do now is something that's quite essential, is just hook the new power supply up and cold boot it multiple times just to make sure that this definitely is the right power supply for this machine. I can see now that 24 connector is stupidly close to the motherboard fan, so I need to do some really innovative cable management here to make sure nothing basically catches on fans. I've had that issue with my newer rig where I've got a GTX card and the cables rise with the heat and hit the fan, so I've had to like cable tie them down. So it's just one of them things to take into consideration. But what I'm going to do is basically leave it like this for the next couple of hours. Turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, just like cold boot it, make sure it's happy. I've got the Seasonic in, just in a very brief session of cable management, which I'm happy with for now. So what I've done here, because this was bowing up towards the CPU cooler, so I had a spare bit of bracing left over from another project. I've just cut this to length and basically put a piece of bracing behind the 24 pin. So there's a bit of an arm behind it, so it'll always stay rigid. So this bit will flex, but that's got a brace behind it, so that works really well. And what I like to do for cable management, I've actually got these Velcro strips. What it allows me to do is basically do like a piloting run of cable management. They Velcro on and off really easily. And when I'm happy with it, then I could go back and properly cable manage it with cable ties. But I quite like these. These are really handy, and you can just move them about. So I'll probably just end up leaving these on. So a closer look at the arm. You can see I've just put some cable ties, and on the back is the actual arm. So that arm there will just keep it straight. So no matter how much airflow runs through here and how hot it gets, it'll never bow or bend or flex or whatever you want to call it. So it's never going to hit the CPU fan. So if I leave this system unattended, there's no risk of that hitting the fan and then it overheating or anything else. So yeah, just a little quick look. I'll put the hard disk drive in, and I've managed to put that ASUS IDE cable in there. It's quite stealthy, you can't really see, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb anyway. So I'm really happy with that. It looks fairly modern, to be honest with you. The fact that this is like old hardware running XP, you wouldn't think it. This at least looks, you know, around the Vista era, but it's looking good, looking really good. Right, so just hook this monitor up on the DVI port. So there's definitely something about this time period that having a glossy screen really does something for games around this era. Early 2000s is when, like, you know, graphics cards were really just adopting like shiny surfaces. So it was still early days for like a lot of like wet looks in PC video games, and this really kind of made things pop back then. There's a lot of stuff now that's done really well through software, but back in the day, a glossy screen would really bring your games to life. Like, it added depth of color and richness. So I'm really happy with this. You got to remember, over the years, there's a song and dance between hardware and software. Like, they grow and they evolve together. Hardware and software are somewhat tied loosely around each other. So getting correct hardware for a time period for certain games does actually make a huge difference. Especially when it comes to actually fully experiencing and immersing yourself in that game for the way it was intended to. So another older game that looks really good with a glossy screen. You've really got to appreciate this game on the older hardware. This is the way it was meant to be played. It looks absolutely fantastic. Right? Forget the remaster. There's something about this that just looks so good. A pre-rendered game, running on period correct hardware, Windows XP. There's a charm to it. So ultimately this would probably be the best to play on a CRT because it was made for PlayStation 1 and then ported to PC. But it still holds up. It's still, I think the textures are slightly better on PC as well. So it just about gets away with it. Okay, so another game that'll showcase this fantastically is Doom 3. Because you've got the play of light and dark in this game. Like the color depth and lighting, the blacks really fade to nothing. Like, people talk about OLEDs where the blacks are basically just, they're non-existent. Right, this is the similar case here with this monitor. If this game looks so bloody good. So again, it's another case of, if you want to play a certain game in the best way possible, you have to play it on period correct hardware. Well, what's annoying about this is the camera does not do it justice here. Like, playing this in real person, in first person, really looks like something else. if I was to play this in the dark with my monitors or headphones on, would be an absolute treat. So this monitor is actually 75 Hertz and it is butter smooth. It just looks amazing. It's just unfortunate the camera is recording at 30 frames per second, so it does look a little bit chunky in the footage, but I assure you, this is smooth as butter. I love it. Okay, cool. So I've ordered a couple of LED strips just so I want to get some sort of lighting in here. I ended up deciding on blue. So these have just got a simple Molex adapter, so they'll just pop in and they're magnetic, so you can just rearrange them to anything. I'm not a huge fan of the RGB thing. I don't mind like a little bit of RGB, like on the keyboard there, just to light stuff up. But I'm not a huge fan of this whole clown bath over the top RGB thing. So this is just to provide a little bit of lighting to go into your, so I can, it's got a clear panel on the side. So I just want some sort of like tasteful lighting in here, and they're just one color, so they'll just stay blue. Right, so I am so happy with how this came out. This is actually quite tasteful. It's not over the top. It's not too bright. It just about pops. It's just what it needs. You've got them subtle blue shadows in there. And actually this is how this machine should have always looked, because this case, when I bought this case, all the lights it had in it were 4 little LEDs on a intake fan, and it had 4 LEDs on the front intake fan, and it didn't really light up the machine at all. This is how this machine should have always looked. Right, so one of the last jobs is to get the Sound Blaster in, and I don't know if you noticed, but in the Doom 3 settings there was an option for EAX, and it was EAX4, which this card supports. It doesn't support the latest EAX5, but basically Doom 3 and below is what I'm aiming for. So just pop one of the braces out. Needs a bit of a clean, but it's not that bad. It's just very fine dust here and there. Okay, I'll just show you some of the console. So I've had a good little laugh with this actually, because I've just installed the drivers and took it for a spin. So everything sounds good, but I've come over here, I click on this EAX tab, and I can put like environment effects on the whole system settings, so I can like set it to like a jazz club or auditorium or bathroom, and it's all like hardware effects. So that's pretty cool, because pretty much always dealt with software based effects. So you can do some pretty funny stuff with I've got a Machine Head playing, and I set it to Chipmunk, and it yeah, and it just basically fucks your shit up. It's pretty damn hilarious, and I guess this would work for games as well. So I could run some games in Chipmunk mode, and it just make everything sound like a chipmunk.
Hello, follow me. Wait.
Right, so this is the test I've been waiting for. So I'm basically getting more than double the CPU mark in comparison to the venison chip. Not venison, sorry, in comparison to the Venice chip. Got venison on the mind. RAM scored better. I think this is where it trips up usually. Because it's an SSD, I think it's not really getting a good mark at all, because it thinks it's a hard disk drive. Okay, so I've done another 3D benchmark, and that is the best score we've had so far. This is pretty much as good as it's going to get on this hardware, unless I upgrade the CPU and GPU. So that is where I'd upgrade and improve this in future. But for now, I'm exceptionally happy with this. This is everything come together and basically made this an ideal shooter rig. So yeah, plan is now I'm going to spend a while just installing games on this, playing them, make a little montage, and record some raw footage with Fraps. So overall, I think this is my favourite way to play Doom 3. Especially with a monitor like this, it's got a 5:4 aspect ratio. The glossy screen just takes me straight back, right? So this is like the ultimate way to play this game, how it was intended to. So it's on period correct hardware, it's locked at 60 frames per second. It looks so good. This game is so ahead of its time. The lighting, the textures, like everything, like the blacks on this screen, they just literally fade to nothing. It looks so modern. It's so impressive, right? But this game is a piece of art. I'm really enjoying how it's turned out on this rig. And I've always known it at like about 30 FPS back in the day, because you know it was just pushing all my old hardware back in the day to its limit, and seeing it like this tweaked and optimized is really nice, especially on the multiplayer side of things. So as for the audio, it changes the game completely. I've never played this game with a software patch for EAX. And I've never had the hardware. So hearing that environmental audio, like everything sounds way more open and realistic. You've got them corridors and metal surfaces that it portrays it so much better. Like Doom 3 for me has always sounded really tinny and really cheap. Like I still dislike the weapons. The weapons are like the worst part of this game. Like I've got a strong dislike for the sounds of the weapons. That's my main pain point for Doom 3. But other than the weapons, the environmental audio, man, it sounds so immersive. Like it's borderline in a horror game, isn't it? So it's one of them games you can put headphones on, and especially with this glossy screen with the deep blacks on it that just basically disappear, and the headphones with the environmental audio, man, this is an experience that I'm looking forward to. This will be a Doom 3 experience that I've never had before. So I've played this game on how many different systems over the years, and even my modern system, it just doesn't quite slap the same. So this is going to be an absolute treat. This is how this game was always meant to be played. So PC gaming's always been, the upper caliber of elitists back in the day. Playing games on 60 frames per second with the best textures and, the cutting edge, basically. So there's no nostalgia here whatsoever, at least not in a detrimental way. There's definitely nostalgia. It's nice to go back and revisit these games, but it's not to the detriment of the medium itself. It's an even better experience playing it on the old hardware than it is playing it on my modern RTX rig, right? So there's something there as a time capsule. So practically, I will be using this. I want to be gaming in some form on this machine. I'd love to be able to set it up as a retro streaming rig, so I can just play through games and stream them. But I'd probably need a capture card to get that working. But for now, I've got CD drives, so I'm gonna go to car boot sales or shop on eBay Vinted to start collecting or recollecting these original games with the discs and their codes and that. So ultimately, there's two main reasons for this restoration. So there's a personal reason. It's my teenage childhood kind of personal machine where it's put me through school and college and everything else and gaming, my gaming journey. So I want to be able to revisit that, how I did play games back in the day, but the optimized version, because I've got the upgrades now. So I can replay these old games that I could never really get running properly, and really just dive back into old school gaming the proper way. So playing games the way they were meant to be played. The second big reason I wanted to do this project is for the next generation. So there's going to come a day where I want to pass down this tech to the next generation, because they'll never be able to experience it how it was back in the day. There's something you can't experience via an emulator or a remake on modern system. It just doesn't slap the same. It's got to be on the original hardware with all the warts and all. You got to switch the machine on and wait and boot it up and just have the clunkiness and the old experience. There's a nuance to it, right? There's something magical about having that source code run on that native hardware in DirectX 8, 9, whatever. There's a magic to it. So I want to preserve that to be able to pass it down and give those gaming experiences to another generation when the time comes. So ultimately, this is just the start. Bringing this machine back to life is kind of cathartic, like I said. But it's a start of another journey where I can go back and play some older games, and just enabling myself the freedom to own that hardware and own that entire process, instead of being kind of stuck down to some sort of subscription service or some online distribution service. I have a physical machine with the physical disc, and I could do what I like with it. I mean, that's magical to me. So, I'm taking the step to do more of that in my life. So, this is just the start for this machine. So, yeah, watch this space. There's going to be the locust is going to creep back up many a time. So, yeah, thanks for watching.